Hello, welcome back to Lady Loves Said Reads. Today we're doing Friday Reads with my cat, Cherry. This is my kitty, Cherry. She is 11 years old and I love her. Yes, I do. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Oh. So this Friday Reads is going to be in combination with a Friday Reads that I filmed last week and never edited or posted due to technical difficulties. Really, I just didn't make time to edit, which is technically a difficulty. So you'll see Friday Reads from that week first, and then I will do this week's Friday Reads next. If you are new here, my name is Jessica. I'm Queen of Castle Lovestead, which is the castle nestled in the prairie realm of Booklandia. Today I will be sharing with you the books that I've read over the past week. Beating the Blues, New Approaches to Overcoming Dysthymia and Chronic Mild Depression by Michael E. Thays and Susan S. Lang. So Michael E. Thays is a medical doctor. Susan Lang is a freelance medical writer, and they joined powers to write a book about dysthymia, which I've talked about in a previous Friday Reads video. And there's not a lot of information out there about dysthymic depression. This is one of the best clinically motivated. This is one of the most credible books that is out there. I had to interlibrary loan it, so there's this on the cover here. The introduction of this book is bleak. So here are the statistics they give you about dysthymia in the very first chapter. Your chances of just feeling better out of the blue without trying to help yourself is only about 10%. Your chances of being depressed 10 years from now is 50%. The average time that people live with dysthymia before getting help is more than 20 years. Your risk of major depression within 1 year is 10%, 75% in 5 years, and major depression can be serious, blah, blah, blah. If you don't develop major depression and just remain dysthymic, your risks of feeling worse with more symptoms, of poorer functioning, and even of attempting suicide keep increasing. Your risk of being hospitalized in 5 years for psychological reasons is even higher than for someone who experiences periodic major depressions. Untreated dysthymia increases your risk for heart disease, stroke, breast cancer, substance abuse, compromised immune function, and even earlier death. It's also linked to a lifetime of chronic illness, recurring major depression, and substance abuse. Your risks also spike for interpersonal problems, eating disorders, anxiety disorders, divorce, lost productivity, and job failure. 8 out of 10 people with dysthymia report that their problems are so overwhelming that they have serious social problems or they have trouble doing their jobs well. Your chances for having a long-standing happy marriage are less than 30%. If you do nothing about dysthymia, you may be doomed to years washed out in a monotone of bleakness. So if you weren't depressed before, you are now. Now, despite the hyperbole of that first chapter, the rest of the book is actually quite good. So it goes through and explains like what a diagnosis of dysthymia means, what's happening in your brain and your body with dysthymia. It shares information on how to adjust yourself regarding like cognitive distortions and making sure that the way that you think about life doesn't contribute to the dysthymia. It gives different lifestyle advice. It gives some really, really good social skill advice. So I'm trying to find the page. So it goes through medications, nutrition, supplemental strategies, psychotherapy, relationships. So I'm getting to the part about relationships. Okay, so it gives this really excellent chart on like how to deal with people, how to be a better communicator, how to look at people more rationally and fairly, how to set better boundaries. And it's really good advice. So I did give this book 3 stars out of 5. Because if you only read that first chapter and you get discouraged and don't read the rest of the book, it's not going to help you, obviously. But if you can get through that first chapter without feeling like the world is stupid, then the rest of the book is actually really helpful. It has good advice, clinical advice, the kind of advice that I was looking for when I read the Dysthymia Diaries, and it didn't have that information in there. That information is actually in this book. Now, the only thing that I really don't like about it is that it's pretty outdated. So this came out in 2004, so it's been a while, and I would appreciate it if they published a newer edition with updated information, because you know there's been new treatment strategies that have probably been developed since then, and so an updated edition of this would be much appreciated. But yeah, 3 stars out of 5 overall. Next, I read another cozy mystery, Double Double Tart and Trouble by Samantha Silver. This is the second book in the Spellford Cove cozy mystery series. I read the first one a few weeks ago and talked about it. And this series is about Robin, who moves to the state of Washington. Her biological mom has died and left her bakery. She is also a witch. So this book had some writing issues. There were some writing issues that pulled me out of the story, like primarily switching tenses, so writing in past tense, but then randomly deciding to write in present tense for like 2 sentences and then switching back to past tense. Like, that was weird, and I feel like it needed a bit heavier-handed editing to catch stuff like that. And then there were some clues and leads that the characters didn't follow on the mystery that I feel like they would have. I feel like these things would have been really obvious to them because the characters are not dumb. Like, these are really smart women. They would have picked up on these clues and these leads and followed them. And so that was an issue for me. It also did the thing that the first book in the series did, where the main character is just randomly like, oh, I know who did it, with no explanation of like how she gets there. No explanation of how she figures out how she knows who did it. She just knows. Ta-da! Like, that really bothered me. I did, however, still enjoy the cozy atmosphere, and that is how cozy mysteries get you, is because they are designed to make you feel good based on like the ambiance, the environment, the consistency, and like the place, the setting. And, you know, this series definitely has me on that basis alone. So the second book was a dud for me. I am going to read the third book. And if it's also a dud, then I'll probably stop reading the series. But I'm going to try and read the third book. If she does that thing again in the third book where the main character is just like, I know who did it, with no explanation of how she gets to that knowledge, then I'm definitely going to stop reading the series, because I just can't deal with that. Like, it's really lazy writing. But I'm going to give it a try because, darn it, I'm hooked on Spellford. I will say that this book had some pretty good twists and turns when it came to like the paranormal side of the story, with her being a witch and whatnot. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, overall I did give this 2 stars out of 5 as the overall rating. And then for like the cozy mystery genre conventions, like 2.5 or 3 bottles of poison out of 5. Next, I read The Echo Wife by Sarah Galey. This is a sci-fi thriller that was published, I think, either this year or last year. Let me double check. This year, in 2020, or 2021, sorry. This book is really, really good. Like, it is a book, this is a book that demands to be discussed. And unfortunately, I can't share a lot of my thoughts on it because those thoughts are so spoilery. But this is a book that would be awesome for a book club. Because, like I said, it just demands to be discussed. It tackles some really intense themes of like misogyny, of not ableism. It tackles themes of like misogyny and female relationships, female platonic relationships, of friendship, who to trust, who not to trust. It also, because it involves clones, it tackles the idea of personhood, like what makes someone a person. Any book about clones is going to ask the question, is the clone a real person, right? So it definitely covers that question as well. And I didn't give you the synopsis of it, but the synopsis is that Evelyn is a genius scientist who's learned how to clone other people, including doing this mind mapping process where she can mind map thoughts and memories into the clone so that the clone is almost identical in personality to the original person as well. So, and then with the clones you can kind of shape the personality through this mind mapping process. And she developed this idea. She's like this world famous award-winning scientist, and her husband cheats on her with her clone. That's the premise. And I won't say more than that, again, because it's spoilery, but oh, it's just so good. Like, it's so, so good. If you like sci-fi, you will probably like this. If you like thrillers, you might like this. There's some parts in here that's more of a slow burn than like a super fast. There are some parts in here that are more of a slow burn than a super fast-paced thriller. But if you do like thrillers, you might like this. If you get really into themes of gender identity and gender inequality, misogyny, personhood, you would definitely like this. You could easily write like a master's thesis on gender just from reading this book. Like, it's so good. And there's so much there. And if you have read this book, connect with me and let me know what you thought so we can actually talk about it, because I would love to actually be able to talk about the actual story without spoiling it for someone. So if you have read it, let's chat. And I did give this 4, leaning towards 4.5 stars out of 5. That is what I read this week. I'm having a pretty good reading month, averaging about 2 to 3 books a week, which is pretty good. So I'm feeling great about that. First is Wanted by Sarah Shepard. This is the 8th book in the Pretty Little Liars series. This book was actually supposed to be the last book in the series, and it definitely reads as a finale. It's the most action-packed book that I have read in this series so far. And it's interesting that once the show came out, this is how I think the timeline happened. I could be wrong, but based on what I have read online, after Sarah Shepard ended the series, she decided to reboot it and revamp it. So I don't know. There's like 16 books in the series, but it was supposed to initially be 8. So anyway, Wanted is the finale of the Pretty Little Liars series. This is the book series that the TV show is based on, and I am obsessed with it. The book series reads kind of simplistic compared to other YA that I have read. I think that she was probably aiming for a younger YA audience. And you can kind of tell in the writing style, it is a bit more simplistic, a bit more materialistic, a little bit more shallow than other YA I've read, but it's still highly entertaining, especially if you're a fan of the show like I am. I watched the show first, and so reading the books has been sort of like a fan fiction experience for me, even though it was like the other way around. You know, the books were written first and then the series was adapted. The books are very, very, very different from the television series. And I think because they're so different, it does feel like reading fan fiction. Like, the girls don't look like any of the actresses who play them. Like, Emily has siblings. She's not an only child like in the show. Like, it's so different. But I really enjoyed the experience of reading after seeing a show, because usually I do things the other way around. Like, I'll read the book and then see the film or the TV adaptation. But having been such an invested fan in the show first, reading the books, even though the descriptions of the characters are nothing like the actresses who play them, I still picture the actresses in those character roles while I was reading the book. So, I mean, it was a really interesting reading experience, having reversed the way I typically will read book to film adaptations. So I did end up giving this book 3 stars out of 5. And you know, it's not for everybody. This series is not for everybody. I think a lot of people are going to not enjoy Pretty Little Liars, but because I am embracing the things that I enjoy, as you saw in my last tag video, I'm wholeheartedly giving this 3 stars out of 5. I liked it. I didn't think it was groundbreaking or earth-shattering. It didn't change my life, but I really enjoyed the reading experience. Next was a book that did change my life, was groundbreaking and earth-shattering for me, and it is the memoir How to Be Ace by Rebecca Burgess. This is an illustrated memoir, kind of like a graphic novel, only we can't say it's a novel, it's like a memoir. And this is so good. The illustrations are so adorable, like they're just so darling. Like, but this documents a girl's experience with asexuality and her figuring out that what her identity is asexual. So it starts with her in high school and follows her through her university experience into her early career. It documents her process of figuring out that she is asexual and figuring out how she identifies, figuring out how to navigate relationships within that identity. And it's just, oh my gosh, it was everything I wanted it to be. So for those of you who don't maybe follow me on Instagram or don't know me very well yet, I am asexual. So I identify as asexual pan-romantic. And what that means is that I do not have sexual desire for other people, but I do experience romantic feelings towards others, and my romantic feelings towards others is not based on any kind of gender. I can feel romantic love for anyone of any gender, but I do not experience sexual attraction. And so this was such a validating book for me. I identified with this character, not even a character, wow, Jess. I identified with Rebecca Burgess's experience quite intensely. And this book, as well as documenting asexuality, it also documents some mental health topics in here that I think others might be able to relate to, specifically looking at obsessive compulsive disorder and how she navigated that and managed that throughout her late teens, early 20s, and young adulthood. So I would like to get a copy of this for myself, because this is a book that I want to reread over and over and over again. So it is on my Amazon wish list and my Thrift Books wish list now. And at some point I will be purchasing a copy for myself, because it just is, it's everything. Like, it's everything. So 5 stars out of 5 to How to Be Ace by Rebecca Burgess. Next, I read the next installment of The Promised Neverland. This is a manga series by Caillou Charest with illustrations by Posuka Demizu. I've talked about this series before. It is a group of children at an orphanage. The orphanage is not a good place, and now they are trying to escape. It reads like a chess game. There are twists and turns around every corner. Every installment so far has brought some new shocking event that has made me go, and so I am going to continue reading this series. I'm having a great time with it. I did rate this particular volume 3 stars out of 5. And next I read A Dark and Stormy Murder by Julia Buckley. This is a cozy mystery. I read this book as part of the Killing Time book club for their April pick, and I really like this book. So this is about an aspiring writer who gets a job with her favorite writer of all time as a ghostwriter for her. What she thinks is going to be ghostwriting. It actually turns out to be this really lovely working relationship. She goes and she lives with the writer. The writer's name's Camilla. And the protagonist's name is Lena. So Lena goes to live with Camilla at this old Victorian house. It's kind of got this gothic feel to it. So there's some gothic mystery vibes in here. She even mentions like Jane Eyre and some other gothic writers that she really enjoys. And they're writing a mystery together, but then also someone is murdered in the town. And Lena is the one to find the body. And so from there they go to solve the crime, which is what cozy mysteries are all about. And this book was so engaging, like right from the start, and maybe it's because I'm also a writer, but I just found the idea of getting to go live with your idol and work with them was such a nice idea. Like, it was so nice to live in that reality for a while, and to see that they had like a really good working relationship just made it even more satisfying. The writing itself was very good. Julia Buckley writes excellent prose, and it's sometimes cozy mystery prose tends to be a bit more simple and less flowery, and Julia Buckley has found like this perfect medium of like not being overly flowery where it's like purple prose, but also not being super simplified so that like the prose doesn't even matter. Like, the prose played a role in this book because it was really lovely. And then I did not figure out the murderer. So of all the cozies I've read, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cozies. I've only solved 1 murder out of 5. I'm not a very good sleuth, apparently. But I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 3 stars out of 5 overall. And then specifically for the cozy mystery genre, I like to give a separate rating because I feel like you can compare this book to all the books I've read and give it a rating, but then I also just want to compare it to other cozies that I've read and give it a rating. So within the cozy genre itself, I gave it 5 bottles of poison out of 5. One of the favorite cozy mysteries that I have read so far. I actually even ordered the second book before I finished reading the first one, so it was a very good reading experience. That is what I have read in the past week. It's been a great reading week. I am also working on a couple other books right now. I'm working on a book of letters, like a collection of letters by Emily Dickinson. This is part of the Fierce Woman book club. And then I am reading Desperation by Stephen King. And it's taking me a while, A, because that book's like 700 pages long, and B, because it is so scary. I can read like 50 pages at a time before I have to take a break, but it's really good. Going to be right up there with one of the best King books I've ever read, depending on how it ends. So that's what I've been reading this week. And yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books down below. If you have any book recommendations based on what I've been reading and loving lately. And until next time, make sure to continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!